According to a poll, Bolivia's movement towards socialism presidential candidate Luis Arce is set to secure 41.9% of the vote in the upcoming elections in September. In Mexico, the Special Investigative Commission for the Ayotzinapa case reported the discovery of the remains of one of the 43 disappeared student teachers. Hezbollah's Secretary General has condemned statements by the US ambassador to Lebanon, who accused the organization of jeopardizing the country's economic recovery and stability. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. We begin in Bolivia, where according to a poll published by the Latin American Strategic Center of Geopolitics this Tuesday, Bolivia's movement towards socialism presidential candidate Luis Arce is set to secure 41.9% of the vote in the upcoming elections in September. According to the centre, this percentage of popular support would allow Arce to win the presidency in the first round, far exceeding the Bolivian far-right candidate, Carlos Mesa, who's set to secure barely 26.8% of the vote. According to the poll, Janine Áñez, who self-proclaimed herself interim president following the coup last year and also plans to stand as a candidate, has half the vote intention that Mesa enjoys. This Tuesday, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro participated in the graduation ceremony of officers of the National Bolivarian Armed Forces. During the military act, the Venezuelan president stressed the importance of safeguarding national peace and stability, while he confirmed the defense minister and the strategic and operational commander of the Bolivarian Armed Forces in their posts. President Maduro also presented new commanders for the Army and the Air Force. And this Tuesday, Venezuelan Vice President for Communications Jorge Rodriguez provided an update on the COVID-19 figures in the country. According to Rodriguez, there were 282 new coronavirus cases reported in the last 24 hours, as well as 3 COVID-19 fatalities, bringing the death toll to 71. Venezuela has now confirmed a total of 7,693 cases, over 2,000 of which have completely recovered from the virus.
Today we must report 239 new coronavirus cases of local transmission and 43 imported cases, for a total number of 282.
And Venezuela's National Electoral Council has deployed machines for the special voter registration process in the lead up to the parliamentary elections on December 6. The registration process will be held from July 13th through July 26th, and all registered and new voters are called to participate. The process forms part of the norms of the electoral schedule, as announced by the new Electoral Council authorities. The Civil and Electoral Registry Commission will activate a total of 551 registration points across the 24 states of the country, while respecting measures to avoid the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Colombian Senator Ivan Cepeda of the Alternative Democratic Pole has requested that the President of the Senate confirm whether President Iván Duque provided the necessary information regarding the deployment of US troops in the country.
Yesterday night was the President's deadline to send a report to the Congress of the Republic, specifically to the Senate, about the presence of U.S. troops in our territory. That's why this morning I have requested that the President of the Senate, Dr. Lidio Garcia, immediately call a Senate session to examine this report and for the Senate to pronounce its position regarding this hostile presence in Colombia. I hope that the Senate of the Republic will comply with its duty to safeguard the sovereignty of the nation.
This Tuesday, Panamanian authorities warned that migrants are banned from organising new repatriation caravans and threaten to penalise those who break the rules. Authorities warned foreign migrants who are contacted by people offering them the possibility of leaving the country that such caravans have no legal validity and that they risk losing the money requested by the alleged organisers. It was reiterated that there is a restriction on movement in place to control and mitigate the spread of the COVID-19 virus. The government announced that any violations could result in deportation, for which the offenders would have to wait in a shelter until borders are reopened. Argentina has presented its debt restructuring offer to creditors, who will have until August 4th to accept the proposal. According to the Argentinian government, this is its last offer to renegotiate the more than $66 billion owed. More details from Argentina with our correspondent Juan Carlos Patolota.
Improved to avoid default, Economy Minister Martín Guzmán, together with President Alberto Fernández, finalized the proposal that was presented this Monday to the National Securities Commission of the United States and the creditors. It reaches $53.5 for every $100 contracted in debt bonds, and in principle, mark a favorable response from the markets.
What it marks is an effort and a very clear intention on the part of the government to avoid any kind of possibility of disorderly default and to put the issue of the debt in Argentina in order and to raise it in the framework of a voluntary restructuring. Nothing is close. It is true that this is what we are seeing today in the stock market, with the price of the shares, the price of the bonds that are rising very strongly. It is true that it has a lot of support if it is known that one of the main groups of bondholders publicly declared to accept the proposal. The doubt is with another group that is headed by BlackRock.
With the rise of the stock market up to 7.4%, and with the shares of Argentine companies abroad reaching an average of up to 22%, it is a very special day for the directors of the Argentine Industrial Union who support the government's initiative.
This will mainly improve, not only in the medium and long term, but in the short term, the financing to those companies that have to provide themselves with inputs from abroad. Do not forget that 2/3 of the inputs needed by the Argentine production are from abroad, and obviously this will improve the financial matter. Beyond that, I think it is healthy for the economy of the country for the medium and long term as well.
It is already known that with the support of the IMF and the G20, the Argentine proposal should be on the right track and clear up doubts about the economic future of the country and the consequences in a globalized economy. But for that, it remains for the BlackRock group to define its position and thus know if the government manages to avoid the default, so the open end could be extended until 5 p.m. next August 4th.
Juan Carlos Bartolota, Telesur, Buenos Aires.
The alternate permanent representative of Cuba to the United Nations, Ana Silvia Rodriguez, stated at a panel organised as part of the UN Virtual Counter-Terrorism Week that the hate speech and messages promoted by the US government encourage terrorist acts against Cuba.
Last April, the Cuban embassy in the United States was attacked with a semi-automatic assault rifle. This serious terrorist attack endangered the life and the safety of the staff of the diplomatic mission and their family. At the time of the shooting, 10 Cuban diplomats were inside of the headquarters of the Cuban embassy. The perpetrator of the attack was arrested by the local authorities at the scene and remained in their custody. 2 months after the terrorist attack has passed, and the United States government is still unable to publicly condemn the events and acknowledge its terrorist nature. It also refrained from taking action against terrorist individuals and groups residing in the United States territory that incite violence against Cuba and its institutions. The attitude of clear complicity of the United States government involves the risk of being assumed as an endorsement of terrorism. The groups and individuals who have carried out terrorist acts against Cuba have operated for years and continue to do so with impunity in U.S. soil. The law enforcement agencies of the United States government are fully aware of this.
And we're taking a very short break now, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Mexico, the Special Investigative Commission for the Ayotzinapa case reported the discovery of the remains of one of the 43 disappeared student teachers following the resumption of searches last November.
El 19 de junio
On June 19, 2020, the University of Innsbruck informed my unit and the Argentine team that after carrying out the analysis concerning the bone fragments sent, one of them corresponded to the student Cristian Alonso Rodriguez Telumbre, one of the young student teachers who disappeared the night of September 26 and 27, 2014. To confirm the results from Innsbruck, the fragments were also analyzed by the Argentine Forensic Anthropology team that finished its review on July 4th, coinciding that one of the bone fragments sent to the Innsbruck lab belongs to the student teacher Cristian Alonso Rodriguez Telumbre.
And the Special Commission for the Ayotzinapa case highlighted that once the remains were confirmed to belong to one of the missing student teachers, the prosecutor's office informed his family members.
En consecuencia, el 5 de julio,
Therefore, on July 5, 2020, I traveled to Tixla City, Guerrero, to personally inform the family about the identification and explain how the discovery was made, that I would answer all their questions and doubts. Some minutes ago, I attended the meeting of the Presidential Committee to announce the families and members of the Commission all these details. I want to emphasize that we have been extremely careful in the way we report this information, in order not to re-victimize the families, because they can be very sensitive when receiving this kind of news.
During a press conference, the Director General of the World Health Organization stressed that the novel coronavirus pandemic shows no sign of slowing.
It took 12 weeks for the world to reach 400,000 cases of COVID. Over the weekend, there were more than 400,000 cases across the globe. There have now been 11.4 million cases of COVID-19 and more than 535,000 lives have been lost. The outbreak is accelerating, and we have clearly not reached the peak of the pandemic.
Italian authorities banned incoming flights from Bangladesh on Tuesday after new COVID-19 cases were reported among members of the Bangladeshi community who had returned to the country. Italian Health Minister Roberto Speranza noted that more positive cases were recorded on the latest flight that arrived in Rome on Monday. The decision comes after a worker who had recently returned from Bangladesh was said to have infected the owner and his colleagues at a restaurant near the capital. Meanwhile, Italian authorities are working on new safety protocols for people arriving in Italy from outside the European Union and Schengen area. The flight suspension will be in place for 1 week.
We are experimenting a screening procedure for passengers arriving from Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh, on a Burmese Airlines flight. The experiment was requested by the Lazio Regional Department of Health, and it consists of carrying out health screening to verify people coming from Bangladesh who are carrying the coronavirus. Our regional authorities believe that there is an increased risk in terms of the virus spreading from that country based on the epidemiological conditions of that nation.
Two passenger trains collided head-on in Western Czech Republic on Tuesday, causing the death of 2 people and injuring at least 20 others. The Czech Rail Safety Inspectorate noted that the collision occurred at 3 p.m. local time near the German border. Spokesman for the Regional Rescue Service, Radek Hez, explained that the German rescuers were also helping at the site of the accident. Meanwhile, Czech authorities have launched an investigation into the incident. Thousands of demonstrators took to the streets in Serbia's capital, Belgrade, on Tuesday after President Aleksandar Vučić announced that COVID-19 restrictions will be reimposed. Serbian health authorities have reported 299 new COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours and 13 fatalities, which is the highest single-day death toll since the outbreak of the pandemic in the country. Protesters threw flares and launched fireworks outside Serbia's National Assembly. Meanwhile, President Vučić noted that the situation in Belgrade is alarming as hospitals are reaching their capacity. A lockdown is set to start on Friday.
The situation in Belgrade is alarming and serious in 4 more cities in Serbia, but Belgrade is really in a critical situation. Starting tomorrow, all public gatherings with more than 5 people will be banned indoors and outdoors, and starting Friday we will have a long curfew or ban on movements until Monday, and from Monday we will recess. We made a lot of mistakes. We have probably relaxed too much. Everyone thought it was all over. We were probably hearing that during summer it would be much easier than during winter months.
Singapore will hold its general election on Friday as authorities continue to carry out phase 2 of the easing of COVID-19 restrictions. A total of over 2.65 million eligible voters are expected to head to polling stations. Singapore's President Halimah Yacob had previously dissolved Parliament on June 23rd and scheduled the general elections for July 10th. Health authorities have reported over 45,000 COVID-19 cases and a death toll of 26. Meanwhile, preventative measures have been enforced during the electoral campaign, among them a ban on holding rallies. We have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah condemned statements by the US Ambassador to Lebanon, Dorothy Sher, who accused the organization of jeopardizing Lebanon's economic recovery and stability.
Since the new US Ambassador arrived to Lebanon, who we welcome along with all the ambassadors, she has dealt with Lebanon as though she is a military ruler or a high commissioner, or as if she has authority and everyone in Lebanon should fear her and ask for her consent. Every day the ambassador attacks Hezbollah and describes it in the ugliest way, saying it is a terrorist group, thief, drug dealer and a gang, while the Lebanese state stays silent without saying one word. What's more dangerous is inciting the Lebanese against each other. The US ambassador goes to political leaders in Lebanon and turns them against Hezbollah and the allies of the resistance. She's pushing the Lebanese towards infighting, sedition and civil strife.
The UN Refugee Agency has reported the efforts of the Ugandan government to host refugees coming from the Democratic Republic of the Congo after authorities allowed a temporary opening of 2 border points, leading to the entrance of over 3,000 refugees fleeing clashes between different militias.
The new arrivals were previously part of a larger group of approximately 45,000 people, according to local DRC authorities, who had attempted to flee towards the Ugandan border shortly after deadly clashes erupted between armed militia groups in Ituri province on 17th and 18th of May. Some of the refugees shared heart-wrenching accounts of militia attacks on their villages to our staff. Many of them told us they were separated from their families and had little time to pack any belongings or look for family members before fleeing. Very few were able to carry personal items, and most fled barefoot with only the clothes they were wearing. UNHCR welcomes the decision of the government of Uganda to allow the group of refugees to enter the country and receive life-saving aid and protection. This effort demonstrates how, through quarantines, health screenings and other measures, states can uphold their obligations under international law during the pandemic, while at the same time limiting potential transmission of the virus.
Customs officials have warned of a downturn in revenue in the Central African Republic due to the COVID-19 pandemic's impact on the economy. Meanwhile, locals have complained about a spike in food prices and thefts by armed groups.
We are still getting fish, but prices have gone up. The roads are blocked and there are armed groups who prey on the transporters. They take their goods and their money. How can we move forward like this? Our government isn't even looking out for us. We are all going to die.
Our job is to take the money and put it into the coffers of the state. So this is a problem for us. We have targets to meet at the end of the month, and if the combos of trucks do not come, that means we are not going to meet these targets. Right now, it is taking the vehicle's drivers weeks to get their COVID-19 test results at Garuvulei, border crossing point with Cameroon, before they can come to Bangui. That's resulting in food crisis, it's costing our truckers, and it's hard for them to earn the money back once they get to Bangui. All this is going to add to the losses that we have seen in respect to the customs space occupied by the rebel groups.
A demonstration was seen in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, on Tuesday to demand an end to police brutality. About 100 demonstrators took to the streets to also demand an end to insecurity and announce a lack of water and other necessities. Meanwhile, Kenyan police fired tear gas and detained several protesters. According to activists, Kenyans have seen an increase in alleged police abuses in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, although a wave of widespread public unrest has not taken place over the issue.
We're not going to stand for police brutality anymore as a community, as Kenyans or as people who have chosen to make Kenya our home. We're not going to stand for that anymore, and we're going to keep standing up and peacefully protesting until that message gets through.
We are not harmed, and we wanted just to take our petition very peacefully. And if you can see, they are very harmed. They have arrested some of us, and they have injured some of us. Even in that vehicle, there is one of us who has been arrested.
On Tuesday, Dubai closed its only field hospital set up at a convention centre to treat COVID-19 cases after the last patient, a Japanese national, walked out in good health. Doctors and nurses still wearing protective gear lined up clapping for Hiroki Fujita as he left the Dubai World Trade Center, which was transformed into a 3,000-bed field hospital in April in order to treat COVID-19 patients. The number of cases in the United Arab Emirates has dropped sharply from a peak of 900 a day in May. The Gulf state has so far reported over 50,000 cases and about 300 deaths.
Today, on the July 7th, we witnessed the discharge of the last COVID-19 patient from the Dubai Field Hospital. So now we will close the field hospital, which has continued with us since the 14th of April in treating COVID-19 patients with a clinical capacity of 3,000 beds and a capacity of 1,800 beds for intensive care. But thanks God, we did not use all of these beds. We only used 1,290 beds. Thanks to the efforts of the government and the efforts of the medical staff behind me, we have been able to put the pandemic under control.
I ask everyone to take a more safer way and keep your health.
And we've come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesu English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching.